welcome to Newsmax Now. I'm John Bachamn. After several delays, America finally got to hear from President Trump's former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, today. Cohen's been called Trump's fixer, but today, during more than 7 hours of testimony, Cohen tried his best to do great damage to the president's reputation.
Donald Trump is a man who ran for office to make his brand great, not to make our country great. He had no desire or intention to lead this nation, only to market himself and to build his wealth and power. Mr. Trump would often say this campaign was going to be the greatest infomercial in political history. He never expected to win the primary. He never expected to win the general election. The campaign, for him, was always a marketing opportunity.
During his testimony, Cohen also called the president a racist, a con man, and a cheat, insisting that President Trump asked him to lie and threaten others on his behalf more than 500 times. President Trump weighed in from Vietnam ahead of today's hearing. This was his tweet. Michael Cohen was one of the many lawyers who represented me, unfortunately. He had other clients also. He was just disbarred by the state Supreme Court for lying and fraud. He did bad things unrelated to Trump. He is lying in order to reduce his prison time. Joining us now to weigh in on if there were any significant legal ramifications from today's hearing is Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. Professor Dershowitz, great to see you as always, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. I don't think that changed the legal landscape very much. We saw a man who was really determined to put the worst possible light on his former boss, and he certainly succeeded in doing that. He certainly painted him in the most negative possible way. But I listened carefully for new evidence of any criminal conduct, and I found it difficult to find any. He said he wasn't aware of any collusion, although he had his suspicions. The description of what he did to pay off that porn star didn't seem to rise to the level of criminal conduct. Certainly not a good day for the president, but I don't think Mueller benefited very much either. This may have been an example.
What about the legal ramifications for Cohen himself? You know, he's admitted to lying to Congress in the past, and several people accuse Cohen of committing perjury today before that panel. For example, his claim that he never wanted to work in the Trump White House. Several people, including the president's own son, Eric Trump, said Cohen was lobbying hard for the chief of staff's jobs. What are the consequences? And is that a serious thing if that turns out to be a lie? What are the consequences if Cohen gets caught lying to Congress again?
Well, if you lie deliberately and it's material, that's yet an additional crime. He has another problem. Of course, since he's disbarred, it probably won't impact on him. But I think he revealed too easily what might well have been lawyer-client protected conversations. Not all the conversations he revealed were criminal in nature or fraudulent in nature. Conversations about, building in Moscow and other commercial ventures certainly sound on the surface like they may have violated lawyer-client privilege information. I would have expected that before he did that, he would have checked with the Bar Association, with somebody else, to make sure that he wasn't disclosing information that is not properly subject to disclosure.
Now, Representative Ro Khanna, a Democrat from Illinois, asked Cohen about the Stormy Daniels payment. I want to go into a little bit more detail on this. And if President Trump directed a criminal, this is Khanna's quote here, a criminal conspiracy with his son and the Trump organization to commit financial fraud. He also asked Cohen if this was being investigated by the SDNY. Cohen wouldn't comment on that. But what is your take? And should President Trump be concerned about a possible investigation in the Southern District of New York relating to the Stormy Daniels payment?
Well, I think you should always be concerned about the Southern District of New York. That's much harder to defend against if it involves commercial activities. I don't see the crime. Remember that a candidate can contribute as much as he wants to his own campaign, $1 billion. And he can do it for any purpose. He could do it to give hush money. He could do it to make sure that the person doesn't testify or state anything that would hurt the campaign, as long as the campaign then reports that self-contribution. So I don't see where the crime comes in. If there's evidence that he manipulated financial records in order to hide it, there may arguably be some legal consequence. But I didn't hear that in this testimony. I just heard that he was anxious to pay hush money to make sure that she didn't say anything that would hurt the campaign. And that's not illegal if the money came from him.
Real quickly on when we take a look at these investigations, do you see any more indictments coming from Mueller anytime soon?
Very likely there'll be more indictments. I mean, the goal of Mueller has been to indict as many people as possible around Trump in order to get them to sing. The problem is people not only sing when they're squeezed, sometimes they compose. We leave it to the public to judge whether or not Cohen composed today or only sang, whether he exaggerated. I mean, the business that Trump didn't want to become president at all seems like an exaggeration. He may have had mixed motives. He may have said, gee, it'd be nice to be president, but if not, it's going to help my brand. That's not the way he projected it. He projected it as kind of a fraudulent candidacy by a man who obviously didn't want to be president. You know, that's the stuff of novels and TV series, but I doubt that's how human nature operates for a person like Donald Trump.
Back to the possible legal ramifications for Cohen himself. North Carolina Congressman Mark Meadows tweeted this: I just entered a referral for criminal investigation of Michael Cohen, who violated the Foreign Agents Registration Act by illegally lobbying on behalf of foreign entities without registering. This is something that came up today. Could Cohen be in any trouble for not fully disclosing his work for foreign corporations before his testimony today?
Well, it depends on exactly what the nature of the work was. He denied doing any lobbying. It's a fact question. If you do lobbying and that has specific definition, then you have to register, and we'll wait and see what the facts show.
Professor, I want to take a listen to this exchange between the ranking Republican on the committee, Jim Jordan, and Michael Cohen. Jordan says Cohen is holding a grudge, which makes him a bad witness. Take a listen.
Mr. Cohen, how long did you work in the White House?
I never worked in the White House.
And that's the point, isn't it, Mr. Cohen?
No, sir.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not, sir.
You wanted to work in the White House.
No, sir.
You didn't get brought to the dance. Here's what I see. I see a guy who worked for 10 years and is here trashing the guy he worked for 10 years, didn't get a job in the White House, and now you're behaving just like everyone else who's got fired or didn't get the job they wanted, like Andy McCabe, like James Comey, same kind of selfish motivation after you don't get the thing you want. That's what I see here today, and I think that's what the American people...
How do you think Jim Jordan did there, exposing Cohen as quote-unquote, a bad witness?
He is a bad witness. You don't need to be exposed as a bad witness when you've pleaded guilty and you're guilty of repeatedly lying. He's a bad witness. The question is, how bad? And bad witnesses sometimes tell the truth. Sometimes are incapable of telling the truth. If, in fact, he was trying to become chief of staff, then he's probably committed perjury in front of this committee. Of course, you know, you have to prove that he really wanted to be chief of staff. He really wanted to be in the White House rather than maybe this was a fleeting desire. These are hard cases to prove. I don't think we're going to see any criminal prosecutions growing out of this testimony, but the testimony does raise questions about credibility. You know, in the end, probably some of the things he said were true. Some of the things he said weren't true. And the idea that you can conflate something that's bad about somebody with criminal is a serious mistake that many people make. He portrayed the president as a very bad person, but perhaps not as somebody who had committed any crimes or had committed collusion, even though that's not a crime with the Russians. Again, we'll see what Mueller makes of this. I don't think Mueller is jumping up and down with joy as a result of this testimony. I think he's really where he was before this testimony.
It did seem like a bit of a spectacle today, but there's one other aspect of this, Professor Dershowitz, I wanted to ask you about, and that was the tweet yesterday sent by Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. The Florida Bar Association has now opened an investigation into this. Here's the quote I'm tweeting here. Hey, Michael Cohen, do your wife and father-in-law know about your girlfriends? Maybe tonight would be a good time for that chat. I wonder if she'll remain faithful when you're in prison. She's about to learn a lot. Now, a lot of folks say this is witness tampering or intimidation. What's your legal take on this?
Total nonsense. Prosecutors do that every day of the week. They say to witnesses, look, if you don't give us what we want, we're going to go after your father-in-law, your mother-in-law. It happens all the time. That's not witness intimidation. To threaten to expose things, if they're true, about relatives or friends or his own background. Witness intimidation really means threats of doing something outside of the legal system, but saying that you're going to cross-examine somebody, that's not witness intimidation, or you're going to bring up facts, number one. Number two, he's a member of Congress, and members of Congress are immune from any criminal or civil prosecution for what they say and do in Congress or on the way to and from Congress. Whether that applies to bar associations is an interesting question. I don't know that it's ever been raised whether a sitting member of Congress or the Senate who is also a lawyer can be disbarred or disciplined for what they do on the floor of Congress, or would that violate the provisions of the Constitution that give protection to senators and congressmen? You know, people say, are senators and congressmen above the law? No, that is the law. The law provides for immunity. It provides for immunity for judges. It provides for immunity for prosecutors. So giving people immunity for what they do in their job is part of the law, and I suspect it will preclude any realistic actions being taken against this congressman. Did he do the right thing? Did he say what he should have said? I think, again, people can disagree about that, but does it rise to the level of criminal or disbarable conduct? I don't think so.
He took the tweet down and he apologized. I don't know if anything will come of it past this. Professor Alan Dershowitz, great to see you. Thanks so much for your insight.
Thank you.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for breaking news and give us a thumbs up. If you like this video, then share it with your friends. Remember, you can watch Newsmax TV live on YouTube. Newsmax TV, real news for real people.